Hey guys, the first half of this video was actually recorded before the AMD keynote with the Ryzen 5000 chips, so keep that in mind as you're watching the first half of this video. And then the second half will have been recorded after the keynote, so I'm going to address some of those points. But the information going into this video is still the same, it's still valid, so just keep that in mind. So it's no secret that PlayStation fanboys keep talking about the damn SSD in the PlayStation 5. How it's going to revolutionize gaming. This, that. How it's going to destroy PCs. It's going to render PCs obsolete. Oh. Hey guys, welcome to Frame Chasers. So, we are in an interesting period of PC gaming right now where the consoles are just about to come out and they're going to be doing some nifty things that PCs can't do yet, right? The problem that we face as PC gamers, well, the age-old question, do you go Intel, do you go AMD? Intel always going to be faster for gaming. AMD's got PCI Express 4.0. And the reason why that's important going forward is because of the console SSDs and the way they're going to be using direct access to it to load textures, right? So on the one hand, you got Intel 10900K, fastest CPU that you can buy, PCI Express 3.0, and only 16 lanes, CPU lanes, and 4 DMI lanes, whatever you want to call it, 4 chipset lanes. So AMD is actually better positioned right now for the future because of PCI Express 4.0. So you can actually take an Ampere or a Navi 2X card, throw it in the top slot, use 8 lanes, and then you have 12 other lanes to play with for SSD bandwidth. So theoretically, you could raid 3 SSDs together, get way more output than the PlayStation SSD, use RTX IO, you're future-proofed, right? Intel does not have that option. So do you choose a faster CPU, load it up with a shit ton of RAM to try and get around the SSD streaming? Or do you go AMD, you're not going to get as much FPS, but you're going to have all the IO bandwidth that you need? The compromises are just left, right, and center. There's no correct or right decision right now. In comes today's testing. Hyper 212 card. This video and benchmark, I want to say, is probably the one that I'm most excited to do out of all the ones that I've done with Ampere so far. This is the be-all, end-all of what the future will hold. So with the Hyper M.2 V2, what I'm going to be doing is so I have 2 Samsung 970 Evo Pluses in my gaming rig, both 1 terabyte. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a stop. First of all, I'm going to do like crystal disk mark and all that stuff to find out the bandwidth of the drives. Then I'm going to take a stopwatch. I'm going to see how long it takes to load a game with 1 drive going through the DM or the chipset, right? Then what I'll do is I will raid the 2 SSDs together on the chipset, which we know won't really do anything because it's limited to PCI Express 3.0 4 lanes. I don't think it'll do anything, but it might increase the randoms, maybe. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to install both the 970 Evo Pluses on the top 2 slots here, put it in the second slot on my 12 Apex, and I'm going to be taking away 8 lanes from my 3090 to see if it's worth it. We're going to be testing in 1080p because it's the most bandwidth restrictive. So if any performance losses are going to happen, it's going to be at 1080p. So what we're going to be doing is RTX 3090, Hyper 212 card, 1080p benchmarks. We're going to compare those 1080p benchmarks with the ones that we already have from the 3090 at 1080p. And then we're going to see Oh, and then also we're gonna do Crystal Disk Mark game load times with the stopwatch. Pretty much the goal is to see, can we as Intel Skylake users future-proof ourselves by cutting the bandwidth of our GPUs in half and installing 2 NVMe drives in RAID 0. And then utilize that with RTX IO in the future. Is this a viable solution to our conundrum? We're gonna find out. Honestly, I hope this works. The 10900K is such a sick gaming chip. Like, it's so fast, right? And the fact that it doesn't have PCI Express 4.0, and the fact that that might kill the life cycle of the CPU early because of the consoles, sucks. Like, that sucks. Like if it ends up happening that way, then that means it was a bad purchase, because it's going to be rendered obsolete faster because of the IO capabilities of it. So, first things first, I'm going to go upstairs, get old Mr. Stopwatch here, and let's time some game load times. Let's see what happens. Follow me.
I don't wanna see you, but you fall apart. Even though you told me to get back your heart, I still spin inside your orbit. Yeah. You say that I should probably start to walk away. I'm hoping that you stop and make me have to stay, 'cause I'm floating in your orbit. Yeah, I'm stuck in your space. Just my luck, put me away. You understand? There's nothing left to say. Pull me back, take my hand, come on, name. You understand? I wanna stay. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. Yeah, I'm stuck in your space. It's my luck, put me away. You understand? There's nothing left to say. Pull me back, take my hand. I wanna leave. You understand? I wanna stay. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. I wanna see you while you fall apart. Even though you told me to get back your heart, still spinning inside your orbit. I should probably start to walk away. I'm hoping that you stop and make me have to stay, 'cause I'm floating in your orbit. Pull me back, take my hand, come on, name. You understand? I wanna stay. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. Yeah, I'm stuck in your space. It's my luck, put me away. You understand? There's nothing left to say. Pull me back, take my hand. I wanna leave. You understand? I wanna stay. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away. Pull me back, take my hand. Come on, name. You understand? I wanna stay. 'Cause I don't wanna walk away.
Okay, so I just finished compiling the triple screen thing that you just saw. It did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing happened. I was, I wasn't expecting like perfect scaling. So when you use Crystal Disk Mark, it doesn't show double the bandwidth. It doesn't show 7 gigs a second. It shows like 6.5, which is pretty good scaling. It's almost double. So I was expecting maybe 50%, not 50, about 50% better load times, right? But nothing happened. It was literally 0% difference of all three of those. So firstly, I'm gonna assume that the games, current gen games aren't written to take advantage of SSD load times, I suppose. Or it just doesn't load into the RAM any faster. Maybe that's the whole point of RTX IO. I'm not sure, but as of right now, doing an NVMe RAID yields absolutely nothing. Like, I guess that's why whenever you watch all those videos where the SATA SSDs load just as fast as like Gen 4 SSDs, I guess those are true. I guess right now it literally doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. But what about PCI Express 8 lanes performance hit? Here are the charts for that. So you can see anywhere from 1 to 5% here that we're losing. Horizon Zero Dawn is the worst offender in this regard, but we know that's why I tested it, because we know that game likes the most bandwidth that it can get, right? But we lost 5% in that game. So that's like the worst case scenario of what kind of performance hit you're looking at by using an NVMe RAID on an Intel system. Okay, so what does this all mean? It means right now, don't worry about it. In the future, I'm gonna have to revisit this when RTX IO actually becomes a thing, but theoretically, we should be okay. Z490 users should be okay. I also tried doing PCI Express overclocking, and I got my PCI Express bus to 103 megahertz, so I could kind of claw back 3% of that 5, but I couldn't claw back all 5 of it. So, but that's okay, whatever. Whatever. If you're playing on a 3090, you're going to be playing at 4K anyway. If you're playing at 1080p, you're going to hit 300 FPS anyway in all your games with the RAID. So don't worry about the bandwidth situation. We do have an out. Z490 users, this is the out when RTX IO comes out. So we're safe there. But there is a rumor or an Intel roadmap. The next chipset, Z590, whatever they're going to call it, that one is actually supposed to have 8 DMI lanes. So it'll be interesting if we can put a 10900K on Z590 and get 8 DMI lanes, like 8 chipset lanes. Theoretically, that would probably be the best of both worlds, because what we know right now is Rocket Lake only has 8 cores. Oh, here's my kitty. There's one guy on YouTube that always wants to see kitty. Hi, Lila. Hi, baby. Say hi to everybody. Hi, my kitty. Say hi. Okay, my baby. My good kitty. Sorry, there's this one guy in the comments that keeps mentioning Leela, so she walked by this video, so I had to just like get her to say hi. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, so Rocket Lake is supposed to have 8 cores with 20% IPC increase. And in my opinion, that's kind of a downgrade. Okay, so the reason why I think the 10900K is still going to be the fastest chip, even with Ryzen 5000 coming, is because it's 10 cores on a monolithic die. The reason why that's so important is because we know that games going forward are going to have 8 cores and 16 threads in mind when being written, right? And which is fine, but that does not account for Windows bloat and Corsair iQ. That takes like 10 cores by itself. And it doesn't account for like RGB software. It doesn't account for Discord. It doesn't account for music in the background. The reason why the 10900K is so good is because you get your 8 cores for the game and you got 4 more threads for all that other shit, right? The problem with Ryzen is even though you have 2 CCDs with 8 cores each, when that IQ is loading off of that second core or that second CCD, the information still has to go through the fabric. Windows is not smart enough to keep all that stuff segregated from each other, you know what I mean? So what you're gonna find is even though it has 8 CCDs, 8 CCDs, it's still gonna just barely be behind the 10900K. That's my theory anyway, but that's not, we'll leave that for the stream. So back to Rocket Lake, what could save the 10900K in the end is if you can have 16 PCI Express 3.0 lanes for your GPU, and then you have 8 DMI lanes for your chipset. You can run 2 NVMe drives RAID off the chipset. You get your 7 gigabytes a second bandwidth for your RTX IO, which is similar to the PS5, right? You don't lose any performance off the top on your GPU. Let's hope that's the case, but my opinion is that would be endgame. That would be endgame. 16 lanes for GPU, 8 lanes for chipset, 10900K. That would be endgame for gaming. Yeah. We'll see though. I still haven't lost hope that maybe Intel will release a 10-core Rocket Lake. If they do, then forget all this and just go to that, because that's just easier. Then we get PCI Express 4.0. But if they don't, we do have the Hyper RAID card, which we can use. We'll lose 5% off the top on 1080p. It's worth it if you're playing at 4K on those console games. It's fine, you won't feel it. We might get 8 DMI lanes in the future, or hope for Rocket League 10 Core, but we're not hooped. The 10900K, 9900K, any Skylake chips, 7700K, all the way up, you're not hooped. You can still use the Hyper RAID card when RTX IO and the direct storage becomes a thing. You're gonna be fine, totally fine. Anyway, even though the whole stopwatch thing was a colossal waste of time, at least I confirmed it for myself. Now I always like to test everything myself to make sure that I have my own data, you know what I mean? I never believe anybody. That's why I do everything myself. But if you like the content, hit that subscribe button, do all that YouTube SEO stuff for me, like, share, subscribe, and if you learned something or if you have any questions about what happened in this video, comment down below, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. See you later.